I'm going to ask Bruce Perky. Bruce, epic fantasy adventures with swords swords and shields and scimitars and mace. Not mace that where you actually spray people, but people hitting over the head with just like that weapon. I think it's called a mace. Are these your type of movies? Do you kind of like these kind of things?
I would say not generally. I mean, I like the Lord of the Rings movies, especially when they came out. Those are really good, but those are kind of more fantasy too. So, but like historical epics with swords and knights and stuff, yeah. Not so much. I mean, I know everyone. Excalibur is cheesy fun, but trippy. It's John Borman, so it's got some style to it, but it's also pretty laughable.
Okay.
And long. Long.
Laughable and long. Here's a movie. It's directed by Peter Yackel, and it's co-written by Peter Yackel as well. The movie is called Medieval. It's headlined by Ben Foster. Ben Foster plays Jan Žižka. He is a 15th century Czech icon and warlord. Quote in IMDb summary, he defeated armies of the Teutonic Order and the Holy Roman Empire. But for the purposes of this epic film, Jan Žižka, again played by Ben Foster, he is tasked by this guy named Lord Boresh, played by Michael Caine. And what he's supposed to do is he's supposed to kidnap Lady Catherine, played by Sophie Lowe. If you actually look at Lady Catherine, played by Sophie Lowe in this movie and think, have I seen her before? If you have seen the underrated Prime Video film Blow the Man Down, she is one of the leads in that film, and that movie is awesome. Anyways, Jan Žižka and his men kidnap Lady Catherine because it's sort of a political thing. There's a lot of intrigue. There's Matthew Good in this movie. There's Til Schweiger. Amidst all that, this political intrigue on unifying the throne and all this stuff, there's just a lot of action. Jan Žižka fighting and his men, fighting people, a lot of killings. Overall, I really enjoyed every single second of Medieval. I did not feel like it was a slog. My only regret was I was not able to see this in the big screen. I like Ben Foster as a lead as well. Bruce, your thoughts on this movie, on Medieval? Did it work for you? 2 hours, runs at 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely too long for me for what we got. It just wasn't, to me, outstanding in any way. Like, it was absolutely mediocre in just about every way. Ben Foster was fine. I guess, to me, the biggest problem in this movie is that it was not really well told. It wasn't clear what was going on. There was lots of exposition that I toned out on. I know it's supposed to be based on something real. I know there's bad guys trying to get good guys and trying to get bad guys and trying to keep her and take her to somebody else, and somebody else wants her kidnapped so they can get some. I don't know what's going on. I just know that he's supposed to be the good guy and they're supposed to be the bad guys. And then people hit people with swords and people fall down and die, and other people don't die. And then they have very strange tactics. I mentioned this to you that didn't make any sense to me. And maybe it's historical, but explain it to me. How if I'm not going to say what the scene is, but if you're a military tactician and you're on one side and someone on the other side puts a whole bunch of smoke in front of you, don't you just wait for the smoke to clear and then go attack them? Like, they can't reach you. Why would you go into the smoke and get attacked in the smoke when and give them the upper hand? So there's
Bruce,
just a lot of
I wouldn't know.
Like
I'm not General Rommel, or I'm not a tactician. I'm just a cinephile.
There's just a lot of things in this movie that were just, it felt like dress up. Like, hey, let's do some medieval dress up and go out and do one of those, LARPing things, and it'll kind of have all the elements you're used to, but it won't really amount to much. And that's kind of where I fell on this. It was just me, and the title is singularly as unmemorable and mediocre as the movie itself. They just called it Medieval. They could have just called it Knights and Swords or something, and it would have been equally memorable.
Or Knights in White Satin. I love this movie. I'm completely the opposite. When it hits Blu-ray, or if it hits Blu-ray, I'm going to get it. I love all the sword fighting and action. Ben Foster was convincing to me. No on Ben Foster, Bruce, on you? You were on the Ben Foster?
I think he's good, but I don't think he makes sense in this role. He feels anachronistic to me in this role. I when I see him, it may not have been the same thing if I didn't know who he was, but seeing him in here, it was like, oh, hey, Ben Foster. Oh, you're pretending to be a knight. Okay. You're doing okay, but you're Ben Foster. You know what I mean? I just could not see Ben Foster.
Okay, Eric Holmes, Dog Noise in Tow. What is your thoughts on Medieval? Oh, you didn't like Medieval either.
I like this. I like Medieval is like a sword and, well, they're not wearing sandals. Like a knights fighting other knights. Like, just on that level, it kind of works. It's knights fighting other knights and warriors. It's, it's kind of like what Bruce says, pretty mediocre. I like the action scenes. There's a part, I don't think this gives anything away, but there's a part near a castle where people fall off of a wall and somehow live through that. There's certain aspects of this movie where like what would kill normal humans and what doesn't kill normal humans is kind of dependent on what the plot needs. And I know this is like based on a true story, but I'm not familiar with this story. But also, I kind of wasn't. This movie didn't get me real jazzed to know more. Like with Breaking, we saw Breaking, and as soon as I was done with that, I'm like, I need to know more. That was really interesting to go back and learn more about it. This didn't really do that for me, and I'm not quite sure what the bigger point is. Also, they had that scene with the lion. And that was awesome. As an action movie, and just an action movie, I thought this was pretty decent. As a true story or a larger comment on something else, I didn't really get much from that angle of it.
All right, Medieval. Absolutely loved everything about this movie. For me, this is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Great performances by Ben Foster, Sophie Lowe. Michael Caine not in it too much, but great to see Michael Caine in it. Matthew Good, very small role in this, but overall, epic adventure. I highly recommend it, especially if you love this genre film. And Peter Yackel said he was very inspired during my interview with him, inspired by Mel Gibson's Braveheart. It has a little bit of that kind of flavor. Braveheart, if you love Kingdom of Heaven, Ridley Scott movies, you're going to hopefully enjoy parts of Medieval. So again, 4.5 out of 5 for me. Bruce, your rating on Medieval?
I think I go 2 on this one.
2 stars for Bruce on Medieval. And Eric, your rating on Medieval?
I'll probably go a bit higher, just because I did like the action scenes in certain parts. I'll probably go 3 stars on this.
3 stars.
This is a movie that could have been great if they just gave it a little more, put a little more extra mustard on it. But as it is, it's a decent action movie. I just wouldn't go in expecting much more than that.
Okay, cool. 4.5 for me, 3 for Eric, and not 1.5. I was still having that PTSD from Tiny Cinema. 2 stars from Bruce.